This week, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the Employment Amendment Bill into law. The law gives Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi the authority to create employment equity targets for specific industries after consulting with sector stakeholders in order to accelerate transformation in the workplace. For more on this, we speak to Thembi Chagonda from the Employment Equity Commission. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time this morning. Perhaps just a reminder or a brief background in terms of how we got here.
Good morning to you and the listeners. So it's been over 20 years since we've had employment equity legislation, and year on year we have a release of a report that shows the state of transformation in the country, and we see that there has been less than 10% at top management level increase from 1998 up to now. And the transformation as a whole has been very slow. We had calls from the sectors, different sectors, from the businesses, from human resources directors and managers, requesting targets to be set, or at least some guidelines as to how do we accelerate transformation in the country. The Commission and the Department of Labour had stakeholder engagements about 2018, and it was really agreed that there has to be some guidelines from the Department of Labour as to what are the targets that companies should be working towards. Of course, in the country, we know that we've got the economically active population demographics, which are guidelines exactly how companies should be represented to reflect the demographics of the country. And of course, we have seen that this has not been the case in businesses as well as in the government in some different occupational levels. And that has prompted the Commission of Employment Equity to advise the Minister in 2018 to come up with some targets in consultation with the different sectors to provide these guidelines that will accelerate transformation in the country. And that's why we have these amendments. So they've been long coming, so they haven't really, we didn't wake up and say we have the sector targets now. And they've been a culmination of all the the slow pace of transformation that we have seen in the country.
What are these sector targets?
So these sector targets are really just giving a guideline to the different sectors. So we had about 11 sectors, in terms of the reporting. So the sectors have now been increased to about 18. So what it means is that if you are in the manufacturing sector, there are different subsectors within the manufacturing sector. So those sectors would have to be analyzed to see where they are at in terms of the different occupational level representation of the demographics that we have in organizations. And we would then, based on that sector, have a consultation with these sectors to say, we see that in the last 20 years you haven't progressed, despite the fact that there have been some opportunities in some sectors to appoint people from designated groups, and people from designated group defined as African, colored and Indian people, and women and persons with disabilities. So we've seen that, in the different sectors, there's been slow progress. So now the sector targets are really just giving indication in terms of which sectors that you are falling under, what skills you need to implement, and also how you can go about implementing and achieve these sector targets. So they are not necessarily the same as your economically active population, based on the current workforce that companies have got combined in the different sectors. And based on that, the Minister and the sectors, and based on the opportunities that have been available in terms of recruitment, promotional opportunities, they say that companies need to at least maybe set a certain percentage for African people and colored people and Indian people based on the average of your economically active population. But you are you're given 5-year targets. So these targets would be, at least, for example, at top management level, you'll be required to have 20% as an example of African males over a period of 5 years. So there is, a time frame that is given to organizations to achieve these targets. So you're not going to achieve 20%, for example, of African males at top management level overnight. You are required to set flexible targets, looking at your succession planning, looking at your training needs that you need to implement over the next 5 years. And you will then be measured year on year with your submission of your report, your employment equity reports that are submitted to the Department of Labour each year. So each year you submit a target that is working towards the 5-year period. So if you don't achieve your yearly target, you are given an opportunity to explain why you did not achieve that target that you have been given. So, and that explanation can be based on the fact that you did not have opportunities for recruitment, your business dropped because of the economic situation, or your business had to be, had to slow down because of various things. So if you did not, sorry?
I beg your pardon. Please do forgive me. For the purpose of time, if you'd allow us, maybe just as we wind down the conversation, you spoke of a lack of progress in terms of the sectors. You also mentioned a little bit earlier on that it's been 20 years of legislation in South Africa, but transformation has been slow. So is another bill the solution? You've also spoken about, how compliance is measured. And so where is the resistance? So you do checks and people submit their reports, and yet we are still in 2023 saying 20 years of legislation, but transformation has been slow. What do we put this down to? Because it would appear that legislation doesn't help.
Yeah, so we put down to mindset, I would say, to some degree, but also in some instances the education system that we have also in, for example, in sectors that are technical, we still have been struggling to find the relevant skills in areas where businesses have been struggling. So this education is also a factor, but also I think to a large degree the opportunities that are available are not enough for businesses to achieve, especially when you look at the higher occupational levels. There are very few opportunities that become available. So it becomes your competitive advantage if you have the right skills, and so that becomes then a challenge for businesses to achieve this. And of course, we see that, a lot of businesses had to close down because of COVID. So there's a number of factors that have really, affected, the progress in terms of transformation. But I think all in all, transformation is not going to be possible if the mindset is not correct. So businesses need to really change. This is an opportunity, of course, for businesses to look at different ways of how do we accelerate transformation, look at diversity and inclusion, for example, and not necessarily just looking at the ticking of the numbers, because people, they have their backs up whenever you talk about a target, but they don't actually look at the current status and say, we do need to have a diverse work environment. We do need to have people with different skills from different backgrounds. So if we can change that mindset and take a different approach, we will definitely see some progress in terms of transformation in this country.
And therein lies the problem, because how do you legislate mindsets? But you've already got formations in the country that have made it known they will be heading to the courts to challenge this. Is the department ready?
Look, the department is ready. What I think the parties that are taking this bill into courts, they are missing the opportunities that this bill has really presented. Firstly, businesses that are under 50, they will be, they will be given an exemption, so they don't have to comply with this legislation. So that already gives flexibility for growth in the business. So that's the opportunity that the department and the commission had, and the business as a whole had to really agree on. So that's the opportunity really lies in there. And of course, the fact that you are given the opportunity to flexibility to give reasons for not achieving this targets if you've set a target and you did not have opportunities. So it's not necessarily true that it's setting quotas, because as a business you have an opportunity to set your own targets, and then if you did not achieve those targets, then you have to explain why you did not achieve the targets. So you have a 5-year period, as I said, to achieve, and that 5-year period gives you the opportunity to develop people in your organization.
Thank you.
Your proper succession planning. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time this morning. Thembi Chagonda is with the Employment Equity Commission. Thank you.